Welcome to CrossTalk, where we talk all things Holy Cross. I am Danielle Wiegandt, president of Holy Cross and 1995 graduate. We're so excited that you decided to join us for our first ever episode of our podcast. This first episode is brought to you by our friends at Roosters on Dixie Highway. Today, our very first guest of the CrossTalk podcast is Mr. Kent Foushee, who is our Director of Athletic Advancement and Facilities, and he's also a very proud 2000 graduate of Holy Cross. So welcome, Kent, to our first ever episode.
Thank you for having us. I'm honored. Looking forward to it.
We're excited to talk to Kent a little bit about all things Holy Cross. And before we start, I just want to give you some of the top things that I have come to know and love about Mr. Foushee. The first is, if you didn't know, that Mr. Foushee hates onions. If you give him something with onions, you will definitely know that. The second fun fact is that Mr. Foushee is very afraid of heights.
As I've gotten older, I've gotten more afraid of heights.
So if you have the chance to see him on a ladder, it's a pretty funny thing. Also, another fun fact about Mr. Foushee is that when Mr. Foushee was a senior, I was actually his theology teacher, and he absolutely loved when I showed Christian music videos and made him do really deep reflection about these videos.
Loved it. All of us loved it, I think.
Yes. But I would say one of the things that always stands out to me when somebody says something about Kent Foushee, he is the epitome of organized chaos.
That's my life.
Yeah. So if you look at his things to do list, his notepad, there's things all over the place. But he's got it all organized in his own head, and he checks things off, and he's ready to go to the next thing. And the last thing I'm going to say about Kent is that Kent's greatest gift is Kent is the pure example of a servant heart leader and does things with great sacrifice around here at Holy Cross. I think anybody that has met you, Kent, would say you bend over backward to make sure that everybody has what they need to be successful. So that's what I love about Mr. Foushee. So we're going to play a little game first with our first guest. Is a word association game. So Kent and I have known each other for 24 years, which is pretty crazy. And I'm going to say a word, and he's going to tell me the first word that pops in his head.
And we haven't rehearsed this.
Wait,
so
he doesn't know
idea.
Yeah, he doesn't know the words that I'm going to say. So this can be a little scary, but we're going to give it a go. So, you ready for the words?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yellow.
Big bird.
Grit.
Determination.
Complicated.
My life.
Preparation.
Prior proper preparation prevents poor performance.
Dog.
Zip.
Sacrament.
Baptism.
Chaos.
My life.
Legacy.
Holy Cross.
Louisville.
Cardinals.
Hustle.
Oh, that old marketing campaign that we had.
Red.
U of
L. Grass.
What I do all summer long, take care of the grass.
Truck.
Mine's beat up.
Gray.
Oh, goodness. The second color of Holy Cross? I don't know.
Okay. Esports.
Zach White.
Busy.
Every day.
Okay. The last word that I have for Mr. Foushee is Holy Cross.
Home.
Awesome. So, Kent, tell us a little bit about that. You know, you mentioned home for when your word association for Holy Cross. Tell us why home, that is such a reflective word for you for Holy Cross.
Well, I think a lot of people don't realize that I did not start at Holy Cross. I went to another high school, spent my first 2 years there. Never complained about it, but Mr. Brever became the principal here. My dad was like, we had kind of talked about it. He was like, have you ever thought about it? And I was like, yeah, we have. I was hanging out with kids that went to Holy Cross. And before I even started, I knew it was home. Just hanging out with the kids and being back in the community that I was born and raised in. It changed my last 2 years of high school. I have 2 exchange students that live with me that I still talk to, a few times a week, and obviously I'm still here. So, it's just, it is home to me. These kids are part of my family. There's so many great relationships that I have. So it's just like second home.
Yeah, because you spend a lot of time here.
I do. That's my wife.
More than your home. More than your home. Well, you have been here a long time, both as a student and as on staff. And, over all the years, you can think of awesome kids that we've had, just kids that really represent the values and just the culture of Holy Cross. This year is no different. We think about the 265 kids that are walking the halls today at Holy Cross. When you think of a student, let's say a male student,
okay,
that comes to mind that you think really represents the Holy Cross spirit, who would you say, who comes to mind first for you? Because there's probably a lot.
Several kids do. Just right off the top of my head, the first name that came to my mind was Roland Royce, senior here. Dad graduated from here. I've known him for a long time. Went to St. Andrew, so I've known him since he was little. He's just a kid that I identify as just loves to be here, takes a lot of pride in being a part of the Holy Cross community. If there's a game here, he's here. He's a hardworking student. He has a servant heart. You never really see him in a bad mood. He's a kid that automatically comes to mind for me.
Yeah, I've loved watching Roland grow up and just kind of grow in his leadership too.
Absolutely.
And the thing I like about Roland too, in terms of the Holy Cross spirit, is I think that spirit of humility. He does have a very humble spirit about him, and I think that's really a lot about what Holy Cross is too, humility.
No, absolutely. You see it in him all the time.
Think about female. So we think about girls walking around at Holy Cross, and lots of great girls have come through here and gone on to do awesome things. But right now on our campus, who would you say best epitomizes the Holy Cross spirit?
I'm going to go with Trinity Howard, another senior. She's a young lady that's involved, I feel like, in a million things. She's on the Executive Guild Council. She plays soccer. She's cheerleading, so she was doing two things at one time. She's also part of the track team. One thing that always comes to mind with me with Trinity is she has an incredible faith. She has a great relationship with God, especially for somebody as young as she is. And another kid that has a servant heart. Like, she's always willing to give back to the community and do things like that. So, Trinity sticks out for me.
Yeah. A word for me for Trinity is probably dependable. Like, if you give Trinity something, she's going to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to the best of her ability every single time.
And you don't have to check on it. You don't have to remind her. I mean, she's super dependable, and we love that about Trinity. So thinking back, we talked about, some students, and but even for your own experience at Holy Cross as a student, as you mentioned, you only spent 2 years as a student. Mm-hmm. But when you think about in those 2 years, what is a favorite memory or favorite moment that really sticks out in your mind?
This is kind of off the wall, but the coolest thing I remember was our senior year football pep rally, and Coach Ray, who was our football coach, he was new. He was a Holy Cross graduate. He was also a massive, strong built man, repelled like Rambo out of the rafters at our pep rally. And it was like a wrestling setup, and he ended up, I think, beating Brandon Abels half to death in the ring that day. But it was so cool. I mean, we all just looked up, and this man is just repelling from the rafters of the gym. And I will never forget that. When I see him, I still talk about it because it just always makes me think about that time.
Mm-hmm. I've seen some teachers do some crazy things just to get kids riled up. At pep rallies.
I couldn't do that though. The kids I said something to a kid about that, and they were like, "Why wouldn't you do that?" I said, "I would fall out of the rafters. It would be terrible."
The whole fear of heights too might come into play.
Yeah, I would be latched on top. No good.
So you've been around here a long time as a staff member, and it's been a pleasure to be on staff with you for such a long time. And think about a moment when you're on a staff, you're on a faculty and staff, and just a moment where you just kind of looked around, you're like, I love my job. Like, tell me a time or a moment, in your time working here that stands out to you.
There's three things I'm going to talk about, and it may kind of be what you're looking for, may kind of not. My favorite day of the year there's twofold. It's orientation day, where you see all these new faces of these 8th graders that are coming in. Now they're high school kids. They're so excited to take that next step. There's so much energy and enthusiasm in the building. I love that day. It's my favorite. I think I wake up early. It's like Christmas morning to me. The other day is graduation. I'm not one of those people that gets super sad at graduation. I love watching kids progress and grow and take that next step. So, on that day, you see so many kids, you remember their story of where they came in at Holy Cross, and then they're leaving as young, confident leaders, and they're going to go do well in whatever they choose to do in life. So those are my two favorite. in terms of just during my time that I've worked at Holy Cross, the day that truly sticks out for me the most was 2017 at Baseball All-A State. I know that was a special moment for a lot of people in this room, but I had a really good relationship with Coach Wig. He was special to me. He always came to my office and talked to me. He always said I was an old soul in a lot of ways. I know how much that day meant to him. I know how much that day meant to all of you all. My son happened to be on that team and loves that man to death. I remember there was like one out in the 7th inning and I'm already in tears and everybody's like I sure the heck hope we win, because I was already going through all of those emotions, but I will never forget that day. That was an awesome, awesome day.
Yeah. And you could probably sit here for hours
and talk about a million of them. They would just start coming running back to me all the time.
Yeah. Well, thanks. That's a great memory for sure. Well, one of the things we want to do for our podcast, for CrossTalk, is we want to take questions, from other people, for our guests. And so for our very first CrossTalk podcast, we have a video question from a student. And that student is Sante Govea, and he's got a question for you.
Hey, Mr. Foushee, what's your favorite part of the new athletic complex?
All right, I think it's twofold. I'm not going to lie. I love the video board because it allows an opportunity for the kids to be on full display with the hype videos. Like, I get so excited, especially the times that I get the opportunity to do the introductions. The other thing is the plaza, because I just feel like when you walk in, it feels like a big-time atmosphere. It feels like you're walking into a stadium. And, I've always talked about the student-athlete experience, and I feel like our kids, and hopefully they don't take it for granted, just how important and how big it feels when you walk into Holy Cross now.
Yeah.
It makes me excited.
Yeah. It's been really exciting to watch the kids feel like that they love to call home, this place to call home.
Oh, absolutely.
Proud.
And for people like us who have been here forever, did we really think this was ever going to happen? I loved Old Alumni Field and took pride in cleaning those bleachers and all that stuff to make it as nice as possible. But this is just something so different and so unique for all the future generations of Holy Cross kids coming through.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so, and other part of our weekly podcast when we bring in a guest is I ask our guests to think about an item that represents their time at Holy Cross, or their what best represents the spirit of Holy Cross for them. And they're going to bring an item in, and they're going to leave it here on our set. We have a beautiful set that has a lot of empty space on our shelves. So tell us a little bit about the item that you brought and why that best represents you as a Holy Cross member of the family.
Well, I've had this picture with me at Holy Cross since I started. It's kind of funny. A million kids will walk in. They have no idea what I looked like when I was in high school. I don't know what they thought, but they didn't think it was this. So seeing it, they always say I look like a baby. My friend group looks like a bunch of goofballs. But when you're coming in as a new school, and you're meeting a lot of new people, the group that you become close with is very important. And this group of guys welcome me in. It's a very eclectic, unique group of guys. Some of them I still talk to, some of them I don't anymore. But when I think about this, there's just a lot of good memories here.
Why don't you put that item up here and we'll kind of zero in on it. Yeah, lots of familiar faces.
You got a radio host. You have Matt coaches Notre Dame cross country. Fernando lives in South America.
James teaches at St. Paul.
And the radio guy.
Oh, and radio, that's right.
He's a dual threat guy. But you see a lot of these, some of these guys still come back. Mike Barnes comes to our car show. He's really into cars. So
yeah,
just a lot of good people there.
Yeah. It's good to see those faces. So as we kind of wrap up our last part of this podcast, here's some things that stick out to me when I think about Kent Foushee. So as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, organized chaos, but always gets it done. When I think about dependability, we talked about Trinity, being a dependable student. I think about dependability is one of your greatest qualities for sure. As much as we do lean a lot on Mr. Foushee here at Holy Cross, I do think we can always depend on you'll get it done. I think the one thing that if you ask any student here at Holy Cross about you, they absolutely know that you genuinely care about them. There is nothing that's not genuine about what you do with our students. And I think that really shows. I think sometimes that adds more stress to you, I know, because they depend so much on you. But I think the kids, at the end of the day, when they think about who has their back and who's going to be there, you're definitely number one on the list. And we love that. And I think, too, I mean, you know, one of Kent's famous lines all the time is teamwork makes the dream work. And, you know, I love that you're on our team here at Holy Cross, and we wouldn't be the same without you. So just those are three things that come into my mind as talking with you today. So thanks for being here as our first guest.
No, that being the first guest is pretty cool. I will say, you know, all that stuff, I appreciate it. But, you know, I'm lucky enough to come in here and work with really good kids every day. And I think as old as I look appearance-wise, I think it keeps me young in spirit. And I'm really blessed to be here every day. So,
well, we're glad you're part of our family. So thanks
you
for being here. So that wraps up our first episode of CrossTalk. And so you may be wondering, how do you continue to follow the Holy Cross podcast? Well, here's how you follow. We are going to be on Instagram, Twitter, or X, and Facebook at HC CrossTalk. So if you want to follow us, and each week we'll be posting, and we will be live episode on Tuesdays at 3:00. So join us for that podcast each week, and we will continue to have different guests. Next week, we are going to be having 2 Holy Cross parents and talking all things about the parent experience here at Holy Cross. If you'd like to be part of the mail call at the next podcast, post a question in the comments on one of those 3 social media platforms, and we might choose your question to ask to the Holy Cross parents. So thank you for being here, Mr. Foushee. Thank you for joining us on our first podcast, and we'll see you next week.